But this man is a different story. He was present during the police raids at the warehouse and tells us what happened.
My name is Ken Kerr. I'm the general manager of Magic Motorcycles. I guess it's about, 20 to 6. But I'm standing up, as I'm looking outside the front, out my front foyer, and I see all these coppers out there, all crouched down with guns out. It must have 25 coppers on the roof with all their guns out and everything, you know. Oh yeah. And all of a sudden, I see the door next door goes flying through the air, and all kinds of glass and stuff flying through the air, and they're throwing percussion grenades at the door and everything else. And I actually got a clip out of one of the grenades too. I got one of the clips I've retrieved outside, eh? So I go to the back, and the two young fellows I met earlier in the day, they got the pin to the ground at the back here. One kid, they're standing on his face, and there's blood running out of him pretty bad. So, because I said something to the guy, I said, "Holy fuck, that's kind of cruel, isn't it? Fucking mind your own business. I think you better get inside, you know." I said, "Okay, you know." And I think, "Holy shit," you know.
A month after Ken's experience, he tells us that he spoke with the owner of Unit 6 and got an explanation as to exactly what happened.
It was a setup. It was a setup. The way I got the story off of the guy owning the unit, Robert, the cops had approached him, and they said, we want these guys to move into your unit, and boom, you know, look how close they are. They're only like 500 feet away, really. He just checked in what's around here handy. He looked at what units are around there for a rent, and then oh Christ, this one's right around the corner. They made a phone call to him and said, "Hey, can we talk to you?" They come over and talk to him and say, "Here, we got something we're going to do. Would you mind if we rented your unit?" So, yeah, but a real estate guy that Robert told me, he said, "Oh no," they approached him and released it off him. I guess to put this sting or whatever you call it together. His name was Lasseline, I think it is. Bob Lasseline or Robert Lasseline, whatever you call it, you know.
Phone calls to Robert's office were not returned. We contacted our local land registry and found that the warehouse is in fact listed under the name Cynthia Lasseline, Robert's wife. She was nice enough to speak with us, but wouldn't go as far as to tell us who approached them to rent the unit.
We're owners, so questions that you want to ask, I have to be sure of my answer.
Okay. I had spoken with some of the neighbors. They told me that he was actually approached in the first place by the RCMP.
Now, see, that's where you have to get the details.
Okay.
Because I don't have those details.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to share this with my husband.
And it would be greatly appreciated. It's that simple.
If I come up with you're not going to get a response, then you'll hear from me as well, and I'll just say to you, no, I'm sorry. Like, I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah. Actually, I have some pretty good intentions with this.
In that may all be the case, and I'm not completely without an opinion on it, but the thing of it is here, we are a property owner, right? I won't speak on this topic without speaking to my husband, and so that we
I totally
understand
understand
what the angle is here.
After speaking with her husband, Cynthia called us back.
Good evening, David. It's Cindy Lasseline returning a call that we had earlier this week. I've spoken to my husband, and I really don't have any information to share. I'm not interested in meeting with you, and I thank you for your phone call. Take care. Bye.
Neither CSIS nor the RCMP will give us their official account of events. The CBC reports that the suspects were looking for space to hold the fertilizer between late May and early June. But if Ken spoke with Mr. Lasseline in July...
His exact words were, like, I've already rented the place out for 3 months for the police. They got some kind of thing happening.
They bought the fertilizer. They drove the truck. They rented the place. They suggested the type of this thing. What are you talking about? They are not doing anything. For 2 years, nothing happened until these two people appeared. If these two people didn't appear, it wasn't going to be 2 years. After 20 years, nothing would have happened.
In an interview, this RCMP agent is very tight-lipped, But from what little he does reveal, even he makes it seem that the RCMP did orchestrate this event.
There are targets, all in the south of Ontario. We just want to reassure people that everything was under control at all times. There was no direct threat.
And remember Mubin Shaikh? The guy who supposedly infiltrated a dangerous group?
To err on the side of caution, I would have to say that these are fruitcakes nonetheless, but with the capacity to do some real damage.
Well, Mubin changed his tune, but only after he received hundreds of thousands of your tax dollars. In an interview in the summer of 2007, Mubin said outright that many of the suspects charged are innocent. Innocent! This is coming from the very mole that supposedly infiltrated the group. One of the innocent ones, he says, is Stephen Chand. Apparently, Mubin hopes the innocent ones are released from solitary confinement sooner rather than later. How nice of him.
First thing is that I want to say that who is going to pay for 14 months of solitary confinement that was found after words that it wasn't necessary? Who's going to pay for that? 14 months these kids stayed in a steel room that is 4 by 6 with no window. Only a small little window open when they get food. 23.5 hours they sit there on their own on the floor. 14 months. This is what's happening now in the Don Valley with Zakaria and Derry and Ahmed Fahim. For 3 and 4 weeks, no shower. They're not allowed. Stephen Chand was pulled out of his shower, was dragged naked from his hair on the floor in front of the people and was hit on the face by the guards there. What kind of human rights we're talking about here? What kind of innocent until proven guilty?
The evidence is flimsy, questionable, and possibly illegal. That's why, in a rare move, Crown prosecutors stayed the charges against the accused in 2007, right in the middle of the preliminary hearings. The suspects were then recharged in what has been called a travesty of the courts.
After the preliminary started, it was really a joke, the evidence that was presented. I'm not going to say what it is, but in one word, it was a joke. And it was appeared to everybody, including the judge, that there is nothing behind this. It's just uncooked story. It's a made-to-measure case. After 4 days of Mubin's testimony, the whole case started to collapse. And the prosecutor saw it happening. It's going to collapse. So they stopped it. They said, no, we have the right to stop it. But the problem is, if the preliminary went through, most of these people would go out on bail. The problem is that the bail, they are denying them bail. I have no idea why are denying them bail. This trial is said is going to take, it was said that it's going to take another 5-6 years.
Without the prelims?
Without the prelim, from now.
In other words, this was an act of political theater.
But how will the judge see this? Will this be the third time that this is all for naught?
Terrorism is defined as violence or the threat of violence for a political purpose.
This group took steps to acquire components necessary to create explosive devices using ammonium nitrate. It was their intent to use it for a terrorist attack.
The timing is interesting, though, because your committee is set to review Canada's security legislation. Many of the critics have said it goes too far, but now it'll be examined through the prism of these events over the weekend.
Terrorist.